Today we're taking a look at the AtGames Legends Virtual Pinball Machine. This unit was first announced to the public back in October 2020, and after some initial consumer feedback, went through a few design changes to become the machine you see today. I paid the retail price of $599 with an additional $100 in shipping. But those of you looking to pick this up in a retail store will be able to save yourself that shipping charge once it begins to be sold in stores. The product arrives in two separate shipping boxes, one with the pre-assembled back box inside, and the other with the main table body, which is also pre-assembled, as well as the metal pinball legs inside. There's lots of cardboard and foam layering inside these boxes to protect the products inside, so I don't think there'll be any common issues with shipping damage for anyone out there. Assembly is very straightforward and can be accomplished in around 15 minutes for most people. Build quality is nice and the machine feels very sturdy. It can be moved around the house by a single person, but isn't so light that it feels just like a toy. I did run into a small issue with one of the back corner bolt receivers not being milled correctly and thus not allowing me to screw in one of the 8 total leg bolts. It wasn't a huge deal, but I did reach out to AtGames support about the problem, and it was determined to be a one-off issue. They quickly sent me out a replacement part to switch out, and once that was done, I was able to screw in that last remaining bolt without an issue. I've not seen or heard of any others experiencing this problem, so I've just chalked it up to dumb luck on my part. Aesthetically, the machine is adorned with a collage of Gottlieb pinball table artwork around the main playfield body, as well as along the sides of the back box. The print is crisp and vibrant, and I didn't see any issues of low resolution or pixelation anywhere on the artwork. There is no protective shielding or film on top of the artwork of the machine, so time will tell if there's any issues later on down the road with artwork rubbing off or getting damaged in those high impact areas like the flippers. Real metal pinball legs hold the machine upright and have adjustable leveling feet on the bottom that can also raise the machine an additional 2 inches if the player needs it to. These pinball legs have a flat, matte gray finish to them, and while they do the job stably holding the machine upright, aesthetically I would have preferred to see them come in chrome to match the looks of most other pinball machines. This machine boasts a 32-inch 1080p main playfield screen and has a secondary display on the back box that measures 15.6 inches that provides the scoring and animations unique to each of the included pinball tables. It also has an illuminated marquee atop the back box that is lit up with an LED strip inside, and there are two 3-inch speakers pumping out that gameplay music and sound, and while the speakers aren't the biggest, I did find them to be able to reach impressive volume levels, and overall they do a good job. The main attraction of this machine are the 22 built-in Gottlieb pinball tables that, in my personal testing over the last several days, have all performed exceptionally well on this machine. I've experienced no slowdowns or gameplay issues on any of the tables, and have found that overall both monitors have been running at a constant 60 frames per second without issue. Even during frantic multi-ball moments, I've not observed any stuttering or gameplay choppiness. Flippers are responsive and free from any noticeable input lag, and when players hit those buttons, flippers engage without delay, which is everything you would expect to see, and an absolute crucial element to hit when it comes to virtual pinball and the experience. Besides the flippers, users have access to 3 separate nudge buttons, one located on each side of the machine and one fixed on the front. There's also a built-in accelerometer that will pick up the nudge movements when you physically move the machine for a more authentic playing experience. The accelerometer settings and sensitivity can be adjusted in the menus to adjust to your preferred playing style, which is good because I personally had some issues with the default accelerometer settings, but after tweaking them a bit, I found them to be much more acceptable for my personal playing style. A real metal plunger using Hall effect technology is on the front of the machine, allowing players to measure out the intensity of their ball launches during gameplay. There is a slight dead spot at the very start when pulling out the plunger before you see it reflected in the game. However, I can't think of a single instance where one would actually want to launch the ball with that little of an impact, so it may just be a moot point overall, as I found myself able to pull off accurate skill shots with the plunger just fine, and overall I thought it performed very well. The front of the machine has a faux coin door that does not open, but houses the start and game menu buttons, and it looks pretty nice. In the lockdown bar area, there is a fixed D-pad that players can use to easily navigate the menus and the user interface, and affixed underneath its Legends pinball acrylic layer, there are two 3-watt exciters that issue out the haptic feedback during gameplay. So when the flippers are pressed and things like table bumpers or drop targets are hit with the ball, you get that tactile response. You can adjust the intensity of the haptics in the menus, and additionally, I found that adjusting the FX volumes to higher levels will also increase the strength of those haptics during gameplay. One of my favorite features on this machine is just how many options there are for players to customize their gameplay experience. You can change the gameplay table views, aspect ratios of the secondary scoring display, switch the flipper and nudge button inputs around, reset high scores, and more. Players also have the ability to make adjustments to things like master volume, music, FX sounds, accelerometer, and haptic feedback settings on a table-by-table basis, as well as make those changes globally. Meaning players can customize every game to use the same settings, or set up each table with its own unique settings. Like its arcade brother, the Legends pinball machine is an online connected device. There is an Ethernet port located on the backside of the machine, or players can use the built-in Wi-Fi. Owners can sign up for a free ArcadeNet account, and once they log into their account on the machine, they can record their high scores onto the global leaderboards for bragging rights or to compete in online competitions. Recording the high scores is a breeze. All you really need to do is be logged into your ArcadeNet account while playing a game. Once you achieve your high score, you'll simply enter in your initials, and then when you exit the game, you will get a notification that your high score has been posted on the leaderboards. There are handy QR codes that can be scanned with a smartphone to quickly pull up the global leaderboards and check your standings. The playfield screen itself is recessed below a nice piece of protective glass, giving it a nice three-dimensional appearance overall. Owners with pets or overactive children will also be happy to see this, as glass is much easier to clean and more durable than acrylic. Initially, I was worried the glass might not be something that survives shipping and being handled in retail stores, but after seeing how much protective padding was inside the shipping cartons, my worries were quickly washed away. At the back of the playfield, there is an HDMI input, a USB 3.0, and a USB 2.0 port, an input source button, as well as volume toggle buttons. Volume buttons are about an arm's reach away for most adults, though you can change the volume internally on the machine without the use of those buttons, so no need to worry if your player can't reach them from the front of the machine on their own. The HDMI and the USB inputs can be used in a vast variety of different ways. Far too many for me to showcase and summarize in one single video. The main focus for most, however, will probably be the ability to connect a PC to the machine and play even more additional pinball games on the machine. Whether it be through OTG or local streaming, players will be able to expand and play even more of their own games at a later date when that firmware update rolls out. Additionally, there is also the ArcadeNet tab menu, which is their subscription-based service that allows players to play even more games on this pinball machine through the cloud. There are a variety of arcade games available that can be played using the onboard D-pad and flipper buttons, or players can plug in a USB gamepad like this Xbox One wired controller and control the ArcadeNet games that way. There's also an offering of cloud-based pinball tables underneath this tab as well. These community-created tables are a nice bonus offering, though I do recommend if you're playing these cloud pinball table offerings that you connect the machine with an Ethernet cable for the best experience. As of the making of this video, the Plunger didn't work on the cloud pinball games, and users would need to use the down arrow on the D-pad to launch their ball. The backglass graphics are also not present at this time on these cloud pinball tables, but will be updated to work with a later firmware update, I was told. Out of the box, this machine does a great job running all the included tables. Both displays look great, and I think it'll be a nice introduction into the world of virtual pinball for most casual consumers at this price point. There are loads of other, more expensive virtual pinball machine offerings out there on the market, but this machine isn't really trying to replace or compete against those, but rather offer the end user with a good performance to value ratio and also provide access to the ever-expanding and versatile Legends ecosystem. This machine will no doubt continue to grow and expand its feature set with future firmware updates, and I know there's already other peripherals in the works to come out later that will help complement this machine and add even more gameplay options to the consumers. As it stands today, I am very happy with the purchase I made, and I'm excited to see what the future has in store for this Legends pinball machine. I really am quite impressed with how this turned out for $600. 32-inch playfield is exceptional, looks great, clear. Obviously 1080p is a fantastic upgrade. 4K would be lovely, but $600 you can't really expect 4K type of operations for that type of price point. The second backglass also looks great at that 15.6-inch size. The form factor, the scale, the weight, everything about this machine fits comfortably in my home, easy to move around. The flippers rest at 32 inches to my waist, so that is a comfortable height for me. I'm 6'2". I didn't feel like I was overtly looking down and hunched over and cramped while I was playing this game. I've played it for hours and had zero issues. And again, you can raise those feet on the bottom bottom of the legs an additional 2 inches should you need to raise the height of the table body just a little more. As with everything though, there is room for improvement, and there were a couple of little oddball things that I noticed during the extended testing that I've spent on this pinball table. First and foremost was I noticed a lot of the scoring of some of these particular built-in Gottlieb tables have very, very small scoring numeric values on that backglass. So you got a 15.6 inch screen, but for whatever reason, some tables such as Black Hole, you get a little teeny bit of a sliver of a score, whereas the rest is just a graphic. And I feel like that space could be better utilized to update and expand some of the scoring, because some of these tables have a very vibrant, very large score display for you to easily read, and then some of them have very, very tiny, very small slivers of score dedicated on that backglass. So that's one thing I think should be changed and just manipulated for the average person to be able to see and comfortably read those scores just a little easier. And speaking of scores in the backglass display, there was a couple of games where I noticed once you start to enter your initials for high score keeping on the backglass of the score, it'll start with the A, but as you're toggling through the letters, you'll see your initials on the main playfield body screen going through, and you'll be able to update it there, but it also doesn't change on the backglass. So if you're staring at that backglass and you're trying to update your initials and you're like, wait a minute, nothing's changing, next thing you know, you've looked down and you've entered all sorts of crazy letters for your initials, something like that I think should be in tune. So as I'm going through the playfield, entering my initials, I would also expect that same thing to be happening on that second backglass display, similar to how we see our scores. In regards to the haptic feedback, I do think it can be improved. That's something I've reached out and suggested to AtGames, because currently, as it stands, there are some subtle little differences between the haptic feedback on these exciters, in which I noticed some of the sound seems to be out of sync with the actions that's happening on the field. It's not out of sync by a lot, but it's just a hair out of sync, so when you hit a bumper or something, or the flippers go up, you typically don't feel that vibration until just a split second later. So I think they need to maybe dial that in a little bit more to get that perfectly in sync. I know that's easily something they can do with a firmware update, so I'm not really worried about it. I don't think it's a game changer by any means, and I know that's something that they're already working on as far as what they've told me. Overall, I really think this is an exceptional value for $600, and I'm really glad I made the purchase. Honestly, the 22 Gottlieb tables on here, if that's all that ever came with and there was no online connectivity, it would still be a pretty decent value in my opinion, because it plays those games far better than any competitor out there currently. And if you're a fan of those tables, then you would really enjoy this machine. Now, if you're not a fan of these tables, well, that's the good thing about the ecosystem and the AtGames platform, is that it's so expansive and versatile. So you can add games, you can play arcade games, add it through USB, you can stream locally, you can add all sorts of things. You can hook up a PC, add hundreds, maybe even thousands of other pinball tables to this machine. The sky is really the limit, and I'm very, very excited to keep testing and seeing how this really grows in the future, because just like the AtGames arcade, they got better and better with each new firmware update. I fully expect the same to happen on the Legends pinball machine. So that does it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed the content. If you did, make sure you hit that like button, share this video with your friends if you found the information helpful, and as always, thanks for watching, guys. Really means a lot.